everyone. My name is Denisha Byron, and I will be presenting to you the best form of burial or homegoing ceremony for your loved ones, which is natural burial. So first, before we begin, I would like you to think about this question. What exactly happens to animals whenever they are deceased in the wild? So that's the question that I would like for you to think about throughout my speech. But first things first, I'll be giving you a personal story about my family with my personal experience with our homegoing ceremonies. So my great-grandmother, she had the traditional ceremony where embalming was done, a ceremony at a church, and a casket and a plot, or a form of real estate, was provided. And that cost about $10,000. Whereas my uncle, he had a homegoing ceremony which only included like a church ceremony and a cremation, and the cost of that was $5,000. So first I'll get into what exactly is embalming. Embalming is the funeral custom of cleansing and disinfecting bodies after they become deceased. So as we know, this has been a practice going on ever since the Egyptian days, so it's nothing new. And now I'll give you a brief history of modern embalming and how it came to be today. Because back in the Egyptian days, spices and herbs were used to disinfect the bodies for their ceremonies. So modern embalming began in the 18th century in England, where an ejection of embalming fluid was done through an artery of the body. And it came to the U.S. through the U.S. Civil War because families needed the bodies of fallen soldiers to be transported back to their homes. And they wanted a proper burial of their loved ones. But in today's practice, formaldehyde is predominantly used, and through an ejection through the artery. So formaldehyde is a very well-known carcinogen, and that is actually a sign that is posted for workers that have to deal with this type of chemical substance on a daily basis. So everyone's aware that it is definitely harmful to their health. According to the National So with embalmers, they're more likely to develop myeloid leukemia, which according to WebMD is a type of cancer of the blood and bone marrow that affects immature blood cell growth. So the effects of formaldehyde obviously go deep into the systems of the workers that have to deal with the deceased. So here's a diagram of funeral expenses, which results up to $15,000 and $350 just to bury your loved ones. And this includes all types of fees: flowers, transportation of the family, cremation, and coffins, food and beverages. It's just everything. And funeral home venue and being able to hire those people, that's going up to $2,000 just alone. And the reason why cremation isn't that great either is because it burns so many fossil fuels, which can then affect the environment, and it uses up possible fuels that we could be using for better practices. So with that being said, we get into natural burial or green burial. What this is not embalming bodies with chemicals such as formaldehyde and stuff like that. Instead, it just disinfects the bodies, just how Egyptians would have done through spices and other customs, along with having a coffin that's made out of biodegradable material, or a shroud, which is just a piece of linen, as seen in the above picture, which will degrade over time much faster than an embalmed body would, which can still be intact even after 5 years. So natural burials are not a new practice. This was done way, 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 way before time. But it's just that the modern form of embalming is very new to us. So another type of natural burial that's on the rise is this pod or tree type of thing. It's called the capsula mundi. And what happens is the body is put into a fetal position inside of an egg, which also has a seed of a tree growing out of it. So over time, the tree will pick up nutrients from the person, the deceased, and will grow into a big tree. So then the thought of this is to have like a type of serenity type of forest for the deceased and the families of the deceased to have a place to grieve and just everything. So, with that being said, why choose this form of burial? It provides a form of realism of becoming deceased and being able to grieve, allowing the family to grieve. And it's environmental friendly. With this, you're not inhabiting the earth with different chemicals of still and stuff like that. Along with the Green Burial Council, they're overseeing that the burial practices are up to par, along with this being the last act of recycling of your body, since it's going back into Mother Nature where it came from originally. And there's no artificial chemicals, and embalming is not required by law unless the deceased will be transported across state lines or the homegoing ceremony will be happening at a later date. And here's a picture revealing of modern burial practices versus natural burial practice. With the modern burial practices that we have today, the body is buried inside of a wooden casket, which can contain like steel type of screws and whatnot to put the casket together, and then it's surrounded by cement. So therefore, it's not going to degrade over time. Whereas with natural burial, it's closer to the surface of the earth, which will allow the body to decay and along with the casket over time. So it's very effective. Along with the tombstones, the tombstone for a natural burial will be made out of limestone, where the name of the deceased is going to be carved through it. So it's much more eco-friendly than our modern practice that we practice today. And with that being said, questions. And here's a small sign that I found from one of the natural burial cemeteries, to a healthy reminder to take care of the land, because someday you will be part of it.
So is it how you want to be buried one day?
Yes, I would like to become part of the Sixth Force.
Did you want to, so you want to be in that egg, what was it called?
The
Or did you want
capsule.
to?
I think either would be great. And the cost for natural burials goes from $800 to about like $2K. So it's much cheaper than our practices that we have today. Question?
How many businesses are actually doing this? Like even in just the state of North Carolina. I mean, because I've seen the egg stuff and I thought that was actually really, really cool, but I did not know, because that, like as you were talking about embalming, in my head I was thinking, I was like, can you not be embalmed? Because that would be great too. And then you're like, yeah, embalming's not required by the law. And I'm like, this is interesting, because I mean, I would probably want to do like natural burial for the tree, because it's I mean, that's really cool, but how many businesses actually do that?
In North Carolina alone, about 3 businesses practices. This has been rising since the 20th century, trying to get back to our old practices that we had before.
Oh, so this, like, the concept's not new, but the business of it is
Just kind of rising back in only the U.S. and Canada. Other nations, they've been practicing this. So it's been in the United States and Canada where it's been going back to the modern technique using formaldehyde.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
And as far as the capsula mundi, that's it's an Italian project that's on the rise, and they're trying to get more approved in different nations.
Do you think they do that here in America? Because that, I mean, it's a great idea.
Mhm.
And like you said, the whole thing about serenity and stuff like that. And I mean, it is true that we're going to be going back to the earth one day. And I mean, I personally would not want to be stuck in a box that doesn't degrade. It's like just putting plastic back into the environment. I mean, I think they should really consider doing that. It could make a lot of money for people thinking of it as a business idea, and I mean, it's also great for the environment, like you said. Would you recommend this to, like, family members, like, or friends?
Definitely, because it's like your last form of recycling. So it's a great idea, marvelous. That is all I have for you today.